my name is Misty Fiello. In 2015, I had a pacemaker implanted for complete heart block. I have since lost about 40 pounds, run 4 half marathons with a personal best time of 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I am currently training for a marathon. As a matter of fact, in just a little bit, I'm gonna get ready to take my kids to jiu-jitsu. I'm going to do a short run, and then I'm going to do a strength training session, and tomorrow morning I'm going to run 12 miles. When you are just getting started down the road to getting healthy, it is so easy to get lost in the weeds, and there is a lot of value in taking to YouTube for advice. But there is often this big picture approach that can make you feel guilty if you focus on your own individual needs. It's hard to know where you should get started. So, do I use my plate? Do I do keto? Do I eat clean? What does eating clean even mean? I read this study that Diet Coke can help me get off of sugary soda, but I also read this other study that says that Diet Coke is really bad for the microbiome. And it's really difficult to know in what direction you should go, and you might feel like, well, I'm not an expert, I'm not even allowed to have an opinion on your own nutrition. It's just crazy to me. So personally, I love a good what I eat in a day video. And a lot of times people will apologize in the very beginning or do some disclaimer in the very beginning when they're doing their what I eat in a day video. Like, I'm not a nutrition expert, I'm not a dietitian expert, but a lot of times these people they're making these videos because they have overcome something difficult. Like they lost a lot of weight, or they had an illness, and in some way they used their diet to make themselves healthier. And so when you watch these videos, these success stories, it can be very useful for you to say, well, if this worked for them, maybe I could give it a try and see if it works for me. I absolutely hate, though, the videos that critique the what I eat in a day videos, because it's so hard to put yourself out there and share your fitness journey, and it's so easy to sit back and pick out the tiny little mistakes that someone might make along the way to getting fit. And so it's easy to say, unless you are an expert in the field, you should never share what you eat in a day, but you have to eat. And plenty of people have turned around their very unhealthy lifestyles without being an expert, without expert advice. And y'all, I have a master's degree in biology, and I understand the scientific method. I know for a study to have validity, you have to have a big enough sample size. But to say that you can't have an opinion on nutrition, on your own nutrition, if you're not an expert, is just silly. You have to have an opinion on nutrition because you have to eat. But you're not trying to publish and sell. You're trying to turn your life around. And you are allowed to focus on an N of 1. In order to change your life, you have to take some action. So I've talked before in my videos about loosely following the fast metabolism diet. And eventually, I found that the diet was too restrictive for me to be sustainable. But in the beginning, it gave me a place to start. It gave me a jumping off point, and it gave me a jumping off point that was very healthy. If you want to change, you have to make a change. The exact definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So you make a change. You also have to maintain a questioning attitude, and you have to maintain the willingness to troubleshoot. So let's say that when you're just getting started, you decide you're gonna go to MyFitnessPal, and you decide that you're going to eat 1,800 calories a day. And you have a goal of losing weight, but you also have a goal of running a half marathon. So your goals are very similar to mine. So you start eating 1,800 calories a day, and you find that you are losing weight. So you're losing like a pound a week or 2 pounds a week. But you don't have enough energy to make it through your workouts. So you switch to 2,200 calories a day. And now you have lots of energy to make it through your workouts, but you're no longer losing weight. So then you're like, well, okay, this is 1,800 calories isn't gonna work for me, 2,200 calories isn't gonna work for me. So you switch to 2,000 calories. And now you're losing weight at about a rate of a half a pound a week, and you also have plenty of energy to fuel your workouts. So that's what I mean by start somewhere, but be willing to troubleshoot and maintain a questioning attitude. So don't do something crazy, like don't go on an all ice cube diet. I mean, obviously that's not a good place to start, but find something realistic that you think you can maybe maintain and sustain, and start there and then start troubleshooting. So remember though, that in order for this to work, you're gonna have to collect data. And you're going to have to learn to be unemotional about that data. So like, if you have a friend who started the keto diet or did the keto diet and they lost 100 pounds and they were able to maintain that weight loss for 5 years. So you're like, hey, this worked for my friend, let me see if this works for me. And you start the keto diet and you find that it is too restrictive and you miss carbs too much, and that 7 days into the diet you binge on carbs, and this obviously is not gonna work for you. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It just means that the ketogenic diet is not right for you. So remember, data is very useful, but the data doesn't define you. So I'm going to give you an example of some troubleshooting that I'm doing right now. So in my first half marathon, I ran it in a time of 2 hours and 45 minutes. My personal best time for a half marathon is 2 hours and 15 minutes. Well, I made several changes. Obviously, I got fitter. But one of the biggest changes that helped me cut a half an hour in a half marathon is a lot of time. 13.1 miles, I cut half an hour off in the time that it took me to complete that race. But one of the biggest changes that I made was that I started fueling my runs. I started fueling it with a product called Goo. It's a really good product. It's about 100 calories per gel, about 22 grams of carbs, and usually it has some sodium. Sometimes they have some caffeine as well. So what I found that works for me is about every 3 to 4 miles, I would take a Goo. And sometimes if you go to YouTube, like everybody has an opinion on running fuel, which is great. There's a lot of information out there. Let me see what's working for everybody else. How can I implement this fueling strategy into my own race? A lot of marathon and half marathon runners will say that they can run a complete half marathon without taking any fuel. They can run the half marathon on their breakfast and then just fuel afterward. And that's great for those people, but this N of 1 cannot do that. I have to fuel about every 3 to 4 miles. But one thing that I'm noticing as I'm kind of going up to marathon distance, I'm noticing that I'm fine on about 3 to 4 Goos, but after those 3 to 4 Goos, they really upset my stomach. And so I'm trying to troubleshoot and work through what fuel will work for me on marathon race day. And I'll probably end up doing a combination of Goo and whatever I decide works for me. And I have tried everything. I've tried stewed waffles, I've tried pretzels, I've tried medjool dates, I've tried peanut butter, which worked for me for a little while, but then ended up like, I don't think it is gonna work for me. And what I have arrived on is like exactly what you would think nutritionally, this is probably the worst choice. But when you look at what Goo actually is, this might be a really good option. So I've switched to, on my long runs, trying to fuel with candy. I'm kind of going back and forth between candy corn and Swedish fish. Candy corn has so the general rule when you're fueling a long run or a race is to take in 30 to 60 carbohydrates every hour. So that's why Goo is such a good product. In one shot you get 22 grams of carbs, you get some sodium, so you also get some electrolytes as well. Well, candy corn has about 28 grams of carbohydrates and has about 60 milligrams of sodium. So it seems like a really good choice. And Swedish fish, I believe, has about 27 grams of carbs, and it also has like maybe 25 milligrams of sodium. So also a pretty solid choice. And actually I did a couple of runs this week where I used that to see, like on some shorter runs, how my stomach would handle it, and it seems like it's working pretty well. I'm gonna try it on my run tomorrow. So obviously candy is not the most nutritious choice, but really neither is goo. And so this N of 1 is going to try candy to see how that works for my marathon fuel. Until the next video, keep moving and remember how lucky you are.